Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Candace from This Vivacious Life, where I share delicious gluten-free recipes, products, and tips to help make gluten-free living easier and more enjoyable. Today we're tackling a question that I get all the time. What is the best gluten-free flour? And honestly, it really depends on what you're making, whether you're making a cake or cookies. But I'm gonna show you my go-to, the one that I use all the time for semi-homemade gluten-free baking. And then I'm gonna show you one when I'm blending to make a true gluten-free cinnamon roll or something from scratch. There are a lot of gluten-free options, so we're gonna talk about which ones are great, which ones are not so great, and where to use them and how. If you've been gluten-free for any amount of time, then you know that sometimes it's hard to find them locally, so we'll talk about which ones are available easiest to you as well. Before we talk about flour blends, let's talk about the building blocks. Individual gluten-free flours each bring something unique to a recipe because no single flour can usually do it all. So you're probably saying, let's just use a gluten-free mix every time. That's easy. And you're right. For a lot of my recipes on my blog, I do use pre-made mixes. This is absolutely my favorite, especially when combined with a little bit of almond flour because it just gives that perfect texture, especially for cookies. Almond flour gives a little bit of browning. And this mix does have a good combination of brown rice, white rice, potato starch, tapioca starch. It has all the good things. It even has a little bit of xanthan gum to give that true lift and gluten-free structure. However, some things really just need to be made from scratch. I have tried using pre-made mixes in some of my best recipes, like our gluten-free cinnamon rolls, for example, or our crescent rolls. And the truth is they really need individual flours to build the perfect structure. And I like to use, we're gonna start with flours. So the base flours that are best for gluten-free baking if you're making your own, and then we're gonna come back to this because I do wanna show you the ease of these as well. But brown rice is gonna be probably your best friend. Brown rice and white rice flour. But I prefer the sweet white rice flour, and that is because it gives a little bit more structure. It's just a little bit starchier, and it gives such a beautiful structure to gluten-free baked goods that doesn't naturally come. So you're gonna want a base of flour, okay? So let's say brown rice and white rice. Those are the things you're gonna use, or sweet white rice. Then you're gonna need to add in some starch, kind of like they did in the mix with potato starch or tapioca starch or cassava. Now, again, why can't I just use this then if you're using those same things? Again, because it's gonna be done in different levels. So maybe a third a cup of this while you still need a full cup of this. And yes, it does work in many things, but for homemade, it's so nice to be able to control the flour that you're putting in the recipe and know exactly what you're getting. Now, a lot of people are like, that's so much more expensive. I have to buy so many more flours. But the truth is, I keep a lot of my flours in an airtight container. And if you're mixing each one individually, then you really only have to buy an individual flour when you're done with that one, where these are a bit more expensive. So price per ounce, this is actually a cheaper way to go. If you're keeping them in airtight containers, it does make it easier as well. So let's talk about some of these mixes, because if you're just starting out with gluten-free, I get it. It's not always easy. It's a little bit harder. So let's talk about which ones are my favorite. I love the King Arthur measure for measure. It's the one I go to the most. It works fantastic in 70% of my recipes. I love it. I will say combining it with a little bit of almond flour gives the perfect texture, especially for the browning on the cookies that you want. Gluten-free flour doesn't give you a browning effect like typical flour does, so that helps. Now, there's some others that are available, like this Crusties or Bisquick. This was one of the first ones that came out when I was diagnosed 18 years ago. This is one of the first I remember seeing, and it is basically just rice flour, a little bit of potato starch. So, not a huge fan. If you love Bisquick, however, and you're like, I just want Bisquick pancakes, this is a great choice. I wouldn't recommend doing much else with it. However, Bob's Red Mill is another great one. If you can't find this, this would be my next. It's a 1-to-1 baking flour. It works great. Again, first thing they start with, which makes me a huge fan, is sweet white rice flour. They get it. They get why this works better than just white rice flour. It also has brown rice flour, potato starch, sorghum flour, and tapioca, again with a little xanthan. So that's the other thing. You can control that. Maybe you're sensitive to xanthan gum, then if you're blending your own flours, these already have that, which really alienates you from being able to bake with them. Now, this was one of the first flours that I tried that was a mix. I do not like it at all. So Bob, sorry, I love this, do not love this. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting Bob years ago, and he is just so sweet, and I would still let him know that as well. But the reason I don't love this is because the first ingredient is garbanzo bean flour. And I remember making cookies with this and thinking, oh my gosh, it tastes like beans. It absolutely does. So if you're making something savory, it's probably okay. But if you're making something sweet, I would never recommend using that flour. Now, cup for cup, this is made by Thomas Keller. I'm a huge fangirl. He is amazing. He has the restaurant French Laundry in Napa. I've had the pleasure of eating there. He cooked the most incredible, well, probably not him, but his team cooked the most incredible gluten-free meal from us from start to finish, including his signature caviar-filled cone that was gluten-free. Everything was done beautifully. Now, this is their new one. They have a regular kind of like a white flour blend, but this is their wholesome blend. They are great. They've done a wonderful job. However, their regular blend has milk powder, so people who are allergic to dairy can't enjoy that. So I did want to bring this because it doesn't have milk flour, and it's a great option for baking as well. Now, Krusteaz is another one that's readily available if you're a Walmart shopper. This is a great one. It has kind of all the flours and starches that you need, so it's an easy one to make pancakes and a couple other things with. So just to recap, these are the gluten-free flours that I'm using. I'm blending per recipe. Like when I'm making my gluten-free honey whole grain sourdough, I will be using different measurements based on what I'm making, whether it's the cinnamon rolls, the biscuits, my gluten-free sourdough starter from the blog at thisvivaciouslife.com. And these are the blends that I'm going to use to grab to make pancakes, cookies. If you're just starting out, this is a great option, but if you're ready to explore a little further, these are great. If you're finding this video helpful so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I share gluten-free recipes, baking tips, grocery finds, product reviews, and everything I've learned from years of gluten-free living. And I'd love to know in the comments, what's your favorite gluten-free flour? Do you prefer a store-bought blend or mixing your own? I always love hearing what works in your kitchens. Now let's keep going. So to recap, these are the gluten-free flours individually that I use to blend for my homemade gluten-free baked goods, and this is my absolute winner for a gluten-free mix when I'm going to make cookies or pancakes or something simple, and I always like to pair it with a little bit of almond flour for that perfect texture. So I hope this roundup helped you discover a new gluten-free flour to try. As someone with celiac disease, I know how overwhelming gluten-free baking can feel at first, but once you find the right flour, everything gets so much easier, I promise. Thankfully, there are more incredible gluten-free flour options available today than there were 18 years ago when I was diagnosed with celiac disease. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new gluten-free recipe, baking tip, review, or grocery find. And before you go, tell me in the comments which gluten-free flour is your favorite. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.